So here's the question. Is there a niche for estate agents? Because I've taught before in my real estate seminars, one of the best things you can do as an estate agent is find a niche and market yourself as an expert in that niche. And I very rarely have seen an estate agent actively marketing themselves as a specialist in representing investors, finding investors good properties and being able to crunch the numbers successfully to actually present good opportunities to investors, and then building up a database of investors that they sell properties to. And now Carlo has done that effectively himself. So really, we are talking about two different things here today. We're talking about investing in property as an individual, Dwane Botha and Polokwane, but also as an estate agent, building yourself a niche where you attract investors to you because you can bring good opportunities to the table for them. So yeah, that's a good point you raise.
All I want to say is thank you for mentioning that, because everyone keeps telling me that I should focus on the residential part of real estate. And what I found with my journey so far is that most of my listings are development properties or development land. So I've been working with a few developers who just develop the land for developers then to put up hotels or shopping centers and all of that. So I would actually love to make that my niche and not just focus on everything, and yeah, focus more on the development side and the investors.
Great, I love it. Ferdy, tell us, what have you done with property investment through the years, either representing clients or your own?
Stephen, I've had a few disasters over the years, if I may say that. I've invested in property myself, mostly in the early 90s, late 90s. Bought some investment properties on, the sales and execution properties and those kind of things for my personal portfolio. So I've dabbled in that for a bit. So I've got experience around that. But I've also lost some over the years, not lost some things that I had to sell off due to circumstances, but I've still got a few properties on my portfolio that I've kept, so there's a bit of equity in there that I'm holding on to for the future, So property definitely has been part of my portfolio, my savings mechanism.
That brings us to 9 o'clock, and I'd like to start on time. So thank you for those of you who've joined us, and I look forward to this morning. It is a really niche conversation, but one I think that fits so well into what you do as an estate agent. And again, there are two very definite conversations which we can have here today. The one will be about your personal property investment. And why not? Agents are the ones that get to see properties early on in the process of sale, and maybe there's opportunities there that you see before other people do. And why can't you be in a position to snap some of those up for yourself to build a portfolio? And then secondly, to create a niche whereby you can build a portion of your business, even if it's not your whole branding strategy, but certainly have a part of your marketing which is targeted towards property investors, that you are kind of the niche agent in your area to represent property investors who are looking for good investment deals. And that way you can build up a client base who are continually wanting to buy from you. I think it's a great strategy for estate agents. Obviously, you've got to skill yourself up to be able to genuinely represent investors intelligently. And that's another one of the conversations that we're going to have with Carlo today, is how to skill ourselves up, and there's some questions I'll ask him around that. So guys, you're very welcome. Carlo, first of all, a huge thank you, kudos to you for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've been in the property investment game for many years. You are an investor, and you run investment seminars, and you have mentored personally a lot of people who want to get into the property investment space through the Property Coach. So we're very grateful to have you on. I'll hand it over to you in a second just to introduce yourself. But I am having to, it's very good news, which we celebrate. Okay, sorry, just going to mute off there. Good news, but Jade Barkhuizen is not going to be joining us this morning. I got a text message at 8:30 from him saying, no, probably 7:30, saying, Stephen, Stacey, his wife, has just gone into labor. So we're on our way to the hospital. So Jade is, as we speak, I'm sure, in the hospital. His wife is squeezing his hand. He's going, you can do it, baby. So unfortunately, we don't have Jade with us today, but it's a good reason, and we rejoice that they're having their first child this morning. But we're in very good hands with Carlo. So yeah, Carlo, let me hand over to you. Maybe just give us a little bit of an intro to yourself and your background.
Thank you, Stephen. Absolute pleasure to be here today, and looking forward to share some valuable notes to all the attendees and to engage with all of you. Well, first of all, as a matter of introduction, I happened to arrive in South Africa in 1999, and I was meant to be here for 6 months. And this year we're celebrating 25 years of full-time presence in South Africa. So I always like to say I'm 100% South African, but I'm equally 100% Italian because that's where I was born and I was raised. And when I came to South Africa in 99, to be honest, I had no idea what investing in property meant. I had no plan to invest in property. And around about 2003, I realized that I was going to stay here a little bit longer. And I thought, well, why not starting the property investing journey? So I started investing in property in South Africa in 2003. I'm a full-time property investor. I invest both in residential property and to a less extent in commercial property. Still have the majority of my portfolio here in South Africa. I also invest internationally. And in that journey, I thought it was a really good idea to help people not making all the mistakes that I've made. I've certainly made a lot of mistakes. I've achieved great things. But anybody that tells you that they've done property, they've never made mistakes, they're either lying or they've never done property, because it's not a perfect science. So today, as we go through this conversation, we start from the point of departure that, in my experience, 90% of property agents do not invest in property. And I'd love to hear from all the attendees, whether you do or you don't. We had some very amusing comments from Ferdi in the pre-introduction to say he's done it, he's made mistakes, he's lost money, but he's hanging on to a few of them, which I've always found to be quite fascinating, because it's almost like going to the mechanic, and the mechanic that fixes all the cars is the one that normally has a beaten up, broken down car. I think we've often seen that. So today I've prepared a little bit of content, particularly focused on the why. I often find, in my experience, supporting literally thousands of aspiring and growing property investors, that where they get stuck really is the why. Why should I invest in property before we even get to the how? And again, in the pre-introduction, I've heard some of you saying, well, when my finances are right, but at the same time, we've also heard Ada saying, well, there's always money out there, and there's lots of money in the property market in South Africa. So let me go through, call it some presented remarks today, and then obviously, you will help me in terms of interrupting me or in terms of engaging with questions as we go along, and then we'll take it from there. Is that okay with you, Stephen?
Absolutely, Carlo. You take it away.
Brilliant. Okay, looking forward to it. So, well, I think we talked about my love story in property, but what I'd like to share is some actual pictures. So these are some of the actual pictures of actual properties that I'm currently invested in. And I show these pictures because none of these properties are the kind of fancy properties you will see on one of those magazines or one of those brochures. And one of the key focuses that I've been having myself as a property investor and sharing with my property investors in my community is really about investing in orderly properties for orderly South Africans. So we're going to look at some of the supply and demand fundamentals and why this remains a very robust way for approaching the investment in property. For those of you that don't know me, I've been featured on many magazines, on many publications. Yesterday, I was actually very blessed to share the show with FNB chief economist on SAFM, really talking about the status of the property market. But other than just being seen as a property expert, what I like the most in my life is these people. These are my students, my investors, my community, and these are real South Africans looking to create wealth for themselves into property. So that's just a quick view. But also what I want to show you my most important love story. That's my family, and I really would like you to introduce you to my wife, Zinhle. For those of you that speak Zulu, Zinhle means beautiful. And my son, my 10-year-old Ndaba. And I really want to sort of share this picture because property is very much of a team sport. It's a team journey. And I often see that when things don't happen is because you're trying to do everything on your own. I'm very blessed that my wife Zinhle is extremely supportive of our journey as a property investor. In actual fact, when we met, I gave her advice on the first deal, only 1 month after after we had met. But what we're really here for is, first of all, should you invest in property? Because the question is not that simple. A lot of people and a lot of real estate agents do not invest in property because maybe they don't have a clear approach to why invest in property. I want to share a few things with you. Well, number one is South Africa is the second most pessimistic country in the world. This is according to one of the world's leading market research company, Ipsos. We're only second to Argentina at this point in time. And investing in property is inevitably a jump into the future, a vote of confidence in you, yourself, your family, the country, the opportunities, the economy. And I remember clearly coming to South Africa in '99. And I remember one thing. People used to say, the country is going nowhere. Interest rates are too high. Properties are too expensive. Investing in property is a bad idea. What I do remember, though, is that at that time, for those of you that like numbers, the average property price in South Africa was less than 200,000. Now the average property price is about 1.2 to 1.3 million rand. So clearly, being pessimistic and being on this wait for things to get better very rarely turns out to be a winning strategy. And I'm absolutely positive that we're going to look in, let's say we fast forward 10 years, 2034, and we're going to look back and we say, for those that did not buy properties in 2024, they're going to say, I wish I'd bought. And for those that bought properties, they're going to say, I wish I'd bought more. I certainly can vouch for that. I was blessed to be part of the property opportunity during the great financial crisis. But I also want to share one thing with you. One of the reasons why you and many of your clients should consider seriously investing in property and is because you will never lose 99% like this. I think I put Steinhoff but there are so many examples on the stock market of anybody losing between 80 to 99 or to 100%. Property will never do that to you. In HFA, if you ask me, why did you start investing in property? I started investing in property because around about 2000, 2001, I lost my shirt in the bubble, the internet bubble on the NASDAQ. And, you know, people don't forget it. People now think about Bitcoin, but I was there and I lost 80 to 90% over the course of 60 days, you know, in the early years of 2000 and 2001. And I promised myself, never ever, and that's, you see, that's where the 25 years of South Africa comes in, never ever to do that again. And that is a very important point for people to consider. The other point that I want to bring to the attention of all the esteemed guests today is, can you actually afford not to invest in property? Because the truth is that the shocking retirement figures of South Africa is that less than 10% of South Africans can retire comfortably using the recipe or the formula that is being given to us to save, put money into an RA, put money into tax-free savings accounts and all those things. That doesn't work. You know, whether you ask Sanlam, you ask 10X, you ask Treasury, they're all saying the same things. Our current retirement system is not working and is leaving people in to be old and to be poor. And I don't know about you, but I also look at the empirical evidence, and I know that those that invested in property are better off in retirement than not. That's as simple as that. That's a very simple one. Another point that I really wanted to share with you is, you know, I was blessed to go to one of the best business schools in Italy, University Bocconi in Milan. And I'm not sure exactly what I remember of those 4 beautiful, blessed years. But one thing I do remember is the law of supply and demand. So I think that in the midst of a lot of negativity that we have on an ongoing basis, in the midst of pessimism, in the midst of wait for better days, let's go back to the fundamentals of supply and demand. And I'm really sort of taking data from Census 22 because that was relatively recently released and it's very powerful data. And one thing that really stands out is that in 1996, this country, this beautiful country of ours, was blessed with 40 million people. Now in 2022, we are blessed with 62 million people. And I think there is a fair amount of consensus that this 62 million is actually undercounted for a very significant percentage of the population that is not legally in the country. This is an incredible amount of growth in people. And one thing that all these people share quite simply is they need a place to stay. They need a roof over their head at night. And I mean, I compare it to my home country of Italy, where in actual fact our population is decreasing, and as a result of that, the very vast majority of the property market is seriously challenged because there are fewer people needing a place to stay. But in South Africa, you know, we've got this incredible growth, and at this point in time, it doesn't look, whether that's good or bad for other socioeconomic reasons, I will leave that to the smart people. But as a property investor, I'm looking at this and I'm looking and say, this is a market that is continuing to grow and is growing super, super fast. In particular, I'm a big fan of mass urbanization. I've spent, out of the 25 years that I've been blessed to be in South Africa, I've spent about 19 of them in Gauteng and 6 of them in the Western Cape. I'm currently based in Gauteng and I'm streaming from Johannesburg. Indeed, there are still people living in Johannesburg, despite what you read on the newspapers. And in actual fact, in Gauteng, there's only 15.1 million people. If you look at that growth, it is shocking. And it kind of goes to explain also a lot of the challenges we're having when over the course of 26 years, we more than double the amount of people. And, you know, this is a number that sometimes we feel we understand it at a gut level, but when you look at it that way, you go like, wow. And is this only in Gauteng? Well, the Western Cape, the beautiful Western Cape, I was there 2 weeks. I spent a week with the family, absolutely beautiful, like always. Well, look at the Western Cape, you know, also almost doubled. Obviously, the absolute number is different, and that's why there is still massive opportunities to invest in Gauteng, despite what all the newspapers say, just because they need to write a story. So that's mass urbanization is a big theme. But the other thing that I wanted to share is if you look at the demographics, we still haven't banked as a property market a huge social demographic dividend of the fact that currently there are 5.6 million people between the age of 30 to 34 years old. And we know this is a cohort, this is a bracket that is very important because they're about to enter that age where on average, currently latest data says that South Africans buy their first property at the age of about 36 years old. So over the next few years, we have potentially up to 5.6 million people that will want to buy a property. Many of them will want to buy a property. And this is going to be of incredible support to the demand patterns in the market. Whether in interest rates, and we're going to talk about interest rates in just a few minutes, can possibly delay that for a year or two, but that cannot stop what is an unstoppable tide of new entrants in the property market. So this is a very important piece of data. And another very important piece of data is that we have another 5 million youngsters, if I can call them that way, between 15 and 19 years old. Why is it relevant? Because most of them, lots of them, will go into tertiary education, and many of them will need student accommodation. I've taken this picture from a recent situation with the UCT housing crisis, and that student housing crisis is likely to get worse before it gets better. So again, these are massive opportunities for those with the right knowledge and the right willingness to take action beyond the short-term noise. But I want to show you some other fact-based research on the fundamentals of investing in property in South Africa. Well, you know, again, looking at great sources of data, we are blessed with so much data and information in the property market for those that care about looking at. If you look at TPN released some time ago a piece of data to say that between 2011 and 2021, the population of renters increased by a full 1 million renters, increased from 2.7 to 3.7. Well, why do we like this? Well, because it's a growing market. You know, I'm a fairly traditional property investor. I like to buy, I like to find good tenants, and I like to sit on the property and to an extent forget about the property and let the property do the work for me. And in order to make this recipe work, I need renters, and I need good renters. And the more renters I can tap into, the better it is for all of us as aspiring or growing property investors. If you're looking for more reasons why you should starting to get serious about investing in property, this is actually a screenshot from my personal credit report. And I'm not sharing it to brag about my credit report, but I'm sharing it because I live in Sandton, and you can see, when I say your area, you can read Sandton. and on average, the credit score on Experian is 628, but in South Africa it's 561. Now, for those of you that understand credit score well, and I know many of you will understand that, it basically means that on average, most South Africans do not qualify to buy a property. Now, that it can be very bad for many reasons, but it can be very good for those like us that actually provide that rental accommodation. Why? Because these people are shut out of the home loans market. And unless the banks relax their requirements, and I've not seen that, and I would say that it might be unlikely for that to happen anytime soon, we are getting into a renter nation. We get into a renter nation like, the US or the UK, because many people will have the money to pay for rent, but they've actually not taken care of the credit score for many reasons. And as a result of that, we have lots and lots of renters at our disposal. Another reason why I think you should consider investing in property is, even in this market, banks are making money. And the fact that banks are making money, well, we love banks, we hate banks. I think we have a love and hate relationship. But when banks make money, banks are open for business, and banks are open to lending to home buyers. They're open to lend to investors. We certainly have banks open for business as we sit here on the 13th of March, 2024. So we have a very strong banking system that is extremely supportive. And as I said yesterday, I was blessed to share the stage with Siphamandla Mkhwanazi, FNB chief economist. And he made a big statement. He said that FNB sees massive, massive opportunities in the property market, and they're very bullish about the next decade for the property market from 2025 onwards. So that was a big statement from FNB for them to actually make that statement on air live on SAFM. The other thing that I really want to share out of my experience, as you said earlier on, Stephen, I came to South Africa in 1999, and back then the interest rates, I think it was about 18%. They were slightly low from the peak of 23% from the emerging market crisis. But I've spoken with a lot of people that were there during those days as active investors. And they all say the same thing. They all say, I wish I had bought more. So currently interest rates are higher, they're nowhere near 17%. And I wish I had bought more. That's the kind of what resonates with me a lot. And I think to sort of like do a few closing remarks, I really like, this quote from Bill Gates, that we always overestimate the change or the problems that will occur in the next 2 years, but we always underestimate the change or the opportunities that will occur in the next 10. So then don't let yourself be lulled into inaction. Get into the right action. And I really like this quote that says, "There's no pain is unbearable," he said, "except that of regret." For those of us online that maybe past the age of 45, I think this will resonate a lot. And I think just one final remark before we get into comments and Q&A. I don't like those that say just buy property and wait, because just buy property and wait is a very lazy piece of advice. I've seen that most property investors invest this way and they don't make money. They buy a property they like, a property they're comfortable with, a property that is in a familiar area. They buy the market price and they buy with a bond from their bank. And I think that's an old recipe, and it's a recipe that doesn't work very well. It was working in 2003, 2004, when the market was going up 20, 25, it hit 30% in 1 year. You could buy anything anywhere. and you are going to do great with property. We're in a different market that is a lot more selective, where you can make a lot of money, but you can also lose money unless you do things. And today I'm sort of like being invited to you, also representing the Property Hack Club that I lead as the property coach. And it's really about buying the right property at the right price, in the right area, with the right funding. And that is what we really focus and what I focus in terms of our investors to help aspiring growing property investors. So hopefully I shared some sort of like factual and database research, Stephen, and you can take it from here, and feel free to use me and abuse me as you deem necessary.
That's great, Carlo. Thank you. That was a really good introduction, and I think it's going to start some good questions from the floor. Just before we turn it over to the floor for questions, and I would like to give a good chunk of time today, guys, to you guys to be able to ask Carlo questions, and you will learn from each other. A couple of questions from my side. There is this balance, or is there? Maybe you'll tell me there's not, which is fine. But in my mind, there is a balance between education and action when it comes to investing in property. So sometimes you need to educate yourself a little bit more before you take action, so that in your case, you are buying the right property, not the one you like and are comfortable with personally, at the right price, not at the market related price, in the right area with the right funding. But now, how do they do? Obviously, that's a big suitcase if you open it. Like, there's a lot of skills to learn there. So sometimes you do need to educate yourself before you take action. But I think sometimes also people can endlessly delay taking action and just getting in. So just comment on that. Like, how much do people need to educate themselves about property investment before they take the leap into either investing themselves or representing investors?
Yeah, I think it is extremely important to empower yourself with a really good command of the fundamentals of the property market and the fundamentals of investing in property. Investing in property is not getting any easier. The complexities are there. And those that come and invest in property, they normally use the 3-2-1 rule. And the 3-2-1 rule is that I'll spend 3 days on the internet, then I'll go and see 3 properties, I'll place an offer on 2, and then I need to get 1 sort of signed off. And unfortunately, the market is a lot more selective nowadays, and as a result of that, you need to do your research. When you just learn by making mistakes in property, you're making expensive mistakes, and you can hardly afford expensive mistakes. And there's a very interesting piece of statistic that 91% of the property investors in South Africa only own 1 investment property. Now, you can ask yourself, what is the reason for this? Because a lot of people go into the first deal without the right knowledge, without the right education, without the right experience, and then they go and get a mediocre or a bad deal. And as a result of that, they then don't do it anymore because they say, this thing is not working for me. So, it's very important your first experience is a good experience, is a profitable experience. And there's research out there that says people spend more time researching their cell phone than actually researching their investment property. So does it take 20 years to become a great property investor? Yes and no. I'm still educating myself all the time. I'm out there doing deals. By doing deals, I learn. I do desktop research as well. But certainly, it is important that maybe you apply 2 or 3 months of your time doing the studying before you go into the market, start writing offers, and going and get your first investment property.
Okay, maybe you've answered the question, but there may be something you'd add to this. What would your advice be to an agent on the webinar that says to you, okay, Carlo, you've convinced me. I think I need to start investing in property. Like, what advice would you give to someone who's kind of brand new, they've not invested before, and they want to start taking this journey?
Yeah, I think the first advice would be to not let money get into the way of your journey. Now, a lot of agents, I know a lot of agents, and almost every agent will have a story to say, I wish I had bought that property. I mean, if many of you are online, I'd love to hear from you whether, you know, you have a story to say, you know, I wish I'd bought that property. And there's a lot of money out there. There's money from the banks, but there's also incredible amount of private capital that has got an appetite to invest in property, because property is still the most reliable, low risk way of investing in property. So don't get money be stuck. I wanted to share, and maybe if you allow me 2 minutes, can I show that case study of how two of our club members came together to sort of pull off a deal that none of them could do on their own?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, just because this is a good example of how you can actually pull off deals. Because as you said, you know, like the amazing thing is that agents are at the front end of finding deals. And I want to show you these case study that happened through two of our students that are also members of our Property Hack Club. One of them was Ntokozo. Ntokozo actually signed an offer to purchase and had 100% bond approved for a freestanding home in Alberton. It was generally valued at $1,650,000. He bought it for 1.3, and I'm sure you're coming across this type of deals all the time. Challenge was that Ntokozo had no cash for transfer cost, and on a deal like that, you know, you're probably looking at about 60,000 rand, around about 60,000 rand to pay for transfer cost, bond registration cost. But instead of saying, I wish I could buy this property, but I cannot, he got the offer to purchase signed. And then he went out into our community to say, who wants to be basically partner with me on this deal? Found another member, Nozipo, had cash, but little time to find deals. And we're going to talk about people that have got cash, but little to no time to find deals, because that's a massive opportunity. And quite simply what he did, Ntokozo borrowed 50 grand from Nozipo to pay for the transfer cost. Then Ntokozo found a great tenant, pays the bond for 6 months in full on time. And then 6 months later, Ntokozo went back to the bank and reapplied for refinancing to go back to the full value of the property, because the property was bought 350,000 rand below market value. Went to the bank agreed to do that because they knew the security and the collateral was there. And then what Ntokozo did was he refinanced the property, returned the capital plus the interest to Nozipo, and he now sits on the property. He pocketed the 294,000 rand, and everybody's happy. And that's just a simple way to show that when you've got a great deal, and this is a great deal because it's a good property in a good area, bought at 350,000 rand below market value. When there is knowledge, when there's a connectivity with this community, you find ways not to basically go back and says, I wish I bought that deal, but I didn't have the money. That's just a simple example, but a powerful example.
Okay, I love it. Thanks. Before I turn it over, yeah, I think one last question from me is there anything you want to say about the difference between investing in property personally and positioning yourself as an agent to represent investors, you know, building that niche? Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, I think that when 6 months ago, I was blessed to join the EXP community, was also done on the basis that many of my clients, using the expression of my grandma, and she blissfully lived up to the age of 93. She said and she was a part of the Second World War. She said that a lot of people that got teeth have no bread, and those that got bread have no teeth. What she meant is that, and as it applies to the property market and to the investors, is that many of those that want to invest in property do not have the time to invest in property, do not have the time to actually go and walk the streets and get their boots on the streets to find the deals. There are doctors, there are health practitioners, lawyers, professionals. They're very, very busy. They work extremely hard. They know the power of property. They want to invest in property, but they don't have the time. The little time they have, they want to spend it with their family. They want to enjoy the fruit of their labor, rightly so. And what they're desperate for, and I've been providing their role, but there's plenty of opportunities in the market. They're desperate for trusted advisors they can entrust with bringing to them selected investment properties opportunities. I'm also like active in the US market, and as many of you know, the US market has a role called the buyer's agent, which we don't really have much of here in South Africa. But a buyer's agent or an investor agent is a tremendous opportunity, because those investors, they are pre-qualified, they've got the money. And if I look at a couple of deals that I've done, and I don't do a lot of deals because the majority of my focus is investing for myself, the majority of my focus is helping people, investing. I really placed them over the course of 48 hours because I found the deal, I did the due diligence, I knew it was investment grade, genuine investment grade deal. I took it to my people, and they say yes, sign and done. So the investors might be more selective in terms of price, but they can execute quickly and they can execute reliably. And that is a massive advantage to any estate agent, because very often I think most will agree, one rent today is better than 2 rents maybe tomorrow. So I think that's a message that I wanted to share in terms of what the opportunities out there in the market to represent and to support aspiring and growing property investors that have the cash, the affordability, the passion, the desire, but don't have the time to be on the ground on a daily basis.
I'd like to add to that, if I may, Carlo. I think there's a huge opportunity for agents to, first of all, skill themselves up to be able to pick investment grade quality properties, as you call them. And then once they've got that skill, to actually activate a market that is not active in property investment yet. Just like you are motivating a bunch of us today about the wisdom of investing in property, what if you, as an agent on this webinar, if you were to go through your list of advocates, hopefully you've got a database of people that you're keeping in touch with, and I've always taught you have 100 advocates that you're building close relationships with. If you don't have that, make a list of your past clients and your sphere of influence. What if you were to phone them and have a conversation, either one-on-one or have some kind of meeting where you invite people to, and just say, this is the opportunity that I see existing in investing in property. If I could, what if you had a little script that you could use on a phone call and say, or if I could introduce you to properties that we can get 10 to 15% below market value, we can get funding, 100% funding for the property, and we can get the rent to cover the bond. Would you be interested in having a look at that and help and getting me to help you start building up a property portfolio? I think there are so many people out there who've never thought it possible that if an agent came along and said to them, I can help you do this, you could build your own market with some phone calls. So just think about that. Okay, guys, I would like to open.
Yeah, and sorry, Stephen, I just want to say something that when I sort of like help our investors creating connections with agents, I tell them that one of the first things they should ask is, Miss Agent, Mr. Agent, do you actually invest in property? And if the agent says no, then it really kind of makes it a lot more difficult for an investor to trust an agent on an investment property where they don't invest themselves. And that's an important point. And if you look at my sphere of influence, I've got more than 21,000 people that I can reach today. But where my credibility comes from is that I've gone through this journey. I am going through this journey. I'm on the trenches on a day in, day out. And I have out of 100 deals that I see, I choose one to take to my investors. But maybe another opportunity that might be available is if you've got those deals, but you don't have the captive market, and you are part of the EXP community, because I only collaborate with the EXP family members, then connect with me to say, I've got a great deal, but I don't know how to place it. And I might be able to help you in doing that, because I think the power of collaboration and cooperation is massive.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, guys, let's open it to the floor. If you've got a question, please put your hand up. There's a little icon at the bottom of your screen, a little hand, and it'll create a queue. And then I'll just work down the queue, and we'll get as far as we can with the time that we've got left. So anybody out there with a question? Patrick, you go for it. Patrick, you just need to unmute your mic.
Morning, everybody. I'm sorry that I didn't have my mic on. Thank you, Carla. That was brilliant. And Steve and everybody else. I'm in a situation where I bought in an area which is a growing market, like Mount Pleasant, Port Elizabeth. So 10 years back, it was seen as, like a dump area. Today, the youngsters are buying the old homes, dolling them up, selling them, or moving in, and then financing the home to buy smaller homes. So I need to know, is it a good idea for me to increase my footprint on my existing home, which I have the space to, building a granny flat, so to speak, renting it out? I have a townhouse I'm contemplating selling, and using that money to build out my home and buy a smaller bachelor pad. So in essence, I'll have 2 rental incomes as opposed to 1 at the moment. Is that a good idea, or should I hang on to the rental property? It's an old townhouse. So I'm looking at new footprints, getting in the base of a new development, getting in ground floor, and then in a year's time, when the 3rd phase goes, I've jumped 20% on that property. Is that right, or am I on the right track?
I think it just, I'll have to give you a fairly generic answer, because every area has got its own dynamics. And if I look back at my experience, I certainly wish I had bought more, and I certainly wish I had sold less. So, selling should always be a last resort. Adding value to a property by means of adding a granny flatlet can be a great strategy. I recommend that you do it in accordance to zoning regulation. So do it, don't do it right. Don't do a DIY, with a bucky brigade and start putting up something. Make sure that the zoning allows for it. Make sure that you draw plans, you get them approved by the municipality before you start building, because that way you're building an asset that at a later stage can be sold if you want to sell it. But if you don't do it, 5 years down the line, you want to sell it, the seller is going to get a bond approved until the FMB valuer is going to come to the property and is going to say, but this flatlet is not on the plans, and your bond, the bond of the purchaser is going to be declined. So do things the right way, even if it takes a little bit longer, because property is an asset. It is an intergenerational asset. And that's really my best piece of advice for you.
Super. Thank you, Carla. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheryl Ann.
Hi, good morning, Stephen. Good morning, everybody. Morning, Carla.
Morning,
I'm the
Cheryl.
principal of, good morning. I'm sorry, I see there's 15 minutes left, 102 participants, and I'm sure everybody wants an opportunity to speak. So just quickly, when you talk about EXP, are you associated with the XP brand, which is now number one out there? And Stephen, I've just joined, thanks to you.
Yeah,
Can you
so,
hear
so
me?
Carlo is an EXP agent.
Fantastic.
That's where his FFC sits. So he's joined the EXP group.
Okay, fantastic. So thanks to the conference, you were the Master of Ceremonies 2 months ago, international. I attended, I'm on board, I'm communicating with Andrew Thompson. You spoke about NASDAQ shares, and that was a poor investment. Is that still the way you feel today?
Cheryl Ann, I don't want to talk about
Okay, we won't elaborate. Fine.
Let's keep it to property investment.
Okay, then my other question, Carlo, we're very blessed. We live in the Western Cape. All right, I'm glad we're not in Gauteng. So we've got a tremendous, this is a growth area. It's exploding. There's not a day that goes by that we don't have people from other provinces wanting to come and live on the West Coast, specifically Longabon, Paternoster. I don't know if these areas are known to you. So the problem we
Yes, very well.
Thank you. There's about 62 properties available in Longabon at this point in time. So as I said, you mentioned there's more renters out there than buyers. Now, the properties, as you also mentioned, are so extremely expensive. I mean, you pay 3 million for a 3-bedroom, 220 square meter townhouse in a security estate, and then that investor wants a good return. But then these people can only afford, say, 18,000 Rand a month. Now, how do you equate that? Having to pay 3 million Rand for a house, the tenants are looking, there's a tremendous demand, but it's not going to be a wise investment to pay 3 million and you can only generate a rental income of 12. So your advice to me is invaluable, but putting it to practice, that's quite a challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's why I said that earlier on that, you know, property investors need to buy the right property in the right area at the right price. But you know, my late mom, bless her, used to always say, you pay less. Sometimes you pay less when you pay more. And you know, I know the Western Cape very well. I lived there for many times, and I remember in 1999, the first time Pam Golding had a property in Camps Bay for R1 million. And we were like, oh, that's ridiculous. You know, like how can a property cost R1 million? And the same property now, you're not going to get it for less than 12 million. So I think it's important that we kind of like differentiate between price and value, and we stay away from it's too expensive because it's valuable. You know, it's like a Ferrari. It's expensive, but it's valuable. So you know, that's but what I will do if Stephen kind of allows me at the later stage is that what I'm sort of like quite happy to do for any of you that will be joining the Property Hack Club as an opportunity to get to become better investors, start being investors, or getting to understand what investors are all about, so you can have better conversations with them. What I've agreed with Steve is that all of you that will join today, I will have a 30-minute courtesy session with you on a one-on-one basis, and that's very valuable. And hopefully during those we can have a conversation around the specifics of your circumstances, your market, and I can give you guidance on doing that. Stephen, if you're happy with that.
Yeah, that's super. We can get the details out to everyone and email those details as well. Great. I want to get to more questions. Thanks, Cheryl Ann. Luke,
Hi there, Carlo. Just 2 questions. Do you have a recommended leverage or loan to value, for a smaller scale property investors? I mean, for myself, it's our house and 3 apartments. So that's maybe the one question in terms of ideal leverage ratio. And then 2, with us, my little property portfolio there, do you have recommendations of how to scale one's property portfolio? Is it to do with structure, trust, or I've got 2 properties in my own name, 2 in a PTY that I own, and would you advise buying more apartments or moving over to freehold properties like student accommodation, communes, or multi-lets, one house, but
Well, I think,
3 or 4.
look, I think you've asked 2 questions that each one might require up to an hour. And because are really powerful and fundamental questions of the property investing journey, and which is exactly what we do as part of our ongoing teaching and lessons that are part of the club. What I want to share with you maybe is I want to share a piece of my life as a property investor. I started investing, I was in my early 30s, and I was highly leveraged for a very, very long time, because to a large extent, the power of property is making money that you don't have yet work for you. I did not come here with money. I came here with 2 luggages, and one was stolen as I arrived to South Africa. Certainly I didn't have a silver spoon, so I needed to make money that I didn't have. So in the early stages, I was highly leveraged. I bought my first property in 2003. Some 3-4 years later, I pocketed a really big profit, and I spread it over the course of 10 properties. So I went from being 50% geared to being 95% geared. Because I wanted to build that pool of money. But obviously I was in my early 30s. At a later stage, you might want to do differently. And that's really part of the engagement I do on a one-on-one basis with some of my clients, looking at your circumstances, your appetite, your life stage, your current portfolio, the maturity of your portfolio. There is no such thing as one size fits all. Anybody that's going to try to tell you this is how you must do property is because they want to sell you that one package. And certainly, and also going back to your second question very quickly, should you buy in a property, in a PTY, should you buy in a trust, should you buy in your personal name? I tell you that as we sit today, I'm invested through all of those vehicles, and happily so, and not because I'm schizophrenic. Maybe I'm also a little bit schizophrenic, but because there are different purposes for different reasons, and it's all about empowering ourselves with the knowledge to say, what must I do, how, so that you can do it right.
Super. Great. Thank you, Carlo. And then another Carlo, Skoltz.
Hey, all of you. Thanks a million for your insightful perspectives on property investment. I really value the fact that, we have agents over here that's focused on investments and encouraging, investment agents. Most agencies don't allow for that innovation and freedom. So thanks a million for this environment and insights. The questions that I have is, what's your advice for, someone with a deep understanding of property investment as various strategies, and we specializing in sourcing investment properties, right? So I do not have an FFC. I haven't been with the agency before. So the vision is to create a company, and then basically, be an agent from the company. So joining EXP as a juristic person. But now from a company perspective, they do say that, you need to have a principal that's a shareholder within the company, like generally. But I'm just curious to your perspective on, registering as a juristic person that would be a sourcing company.
I think that question is better placed with Stephen. He's, absolutely the right person to give you the advice. I think my focus is on really helping aspiring, growing property investors. Stephen is the guru when it comes to the question that you've asked.
Guru.
I got to tell you, I didn't understand the questions.
All right. To simplify, so
Yeah.
this person join EXP Realty, right? Can
Yeah.
join in your personal capacity,
Yeah.
right? And then a person do the internship under a principal, you do your logbook with him.
Yeah.
But when a person's coming from a more entrepreneurial perspective, we now do not want to join EXP as an individual, but as a company, which is a juristic person. So we register a company, and then we let that company register you know, as an EXP agent, basically. We want the company to hold the FFC as well. So generally, if we do that, like, you know, in general, I can just make a principal a shareholder within this company. And then, you know, I do my internship and logbook under the principal. So,
Yeah, Carlo, let's pick up this discussion outside of this webinar.
all right, brilliant, Stephen. I'll email you and then we can schedule some quality time.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Any other questions? I'm just trying to look through the chat bar. If I've missed anything, I'd actually prefer you to just stick your hand up, because chances are I've missed some chat comment. So we can call it a day. Okay, Glenn, great. You can probably take us home, Glenn.
Hi, sorry, it's Andres. I just wanted to double check or just to make sure. So the properties that you invest in, the buy to rent, would you manage those rentals yourself, get a tenant, make sure you get the payments in, like vent the right, or would you outsource it to a rental management company to handle that for you? Yeah, is there pros and cons to it? I just found that it's better just to hand it over to a rental company. So it's costing you a little bit more, but it saves you time to focus on what you're good at and investing. But yeah, what would you advise? Manage it yourself or outsource it?
I've certainly seen that one of the key weaknesses of property investors in South Africa is their ability to select, screen, and place tenants. It is becoming an increasingly complex set of skills, with all the compliance requirements, all the fraud and intelligence. So I think for the very vast majority of property investors that, as I've said, own one property, it is unlikely they've got the skills, the tools to do the screening correctly and accurately in compliance. So they're much better off leaving it with the experts, with those that do it on an ongoing basis, and your success rate is definitely going to be higher. I've certainly seen that scamsters tends to target private landlords because they know that they don't have the same defense mechanisms as established and professional letting and property rental managers. So on balance, that would be my recommendation. On balance.
Yeah, that's good. That was a good insight. Thank you. Any other questions, guys? We're just at 10 o'clock. I think it's been a great hour together. Carlo, thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise.
A pleasure.
If people want to find out about the Property Hack Club, I think you put a link in the chat bar. So guys, have a look in the chat quickly, click that link, and then you can jump on with Carlo directly from here. Carlo, any last words from you?
Thank you for sort of having me as your guest, and I look forward to be of further value when you deem necessary and appropriate.
All right, beautiful. It's always a pleasure dealing with you, Carlo. You've got a wonderful way and obviously a lot of expertise in the area as well. So thank you so much again. Guys, thank you for joining us. God bless you all. Have a wonderful week further.